Welcome to NFL Nexus. Listen, the air inside Soldier Field, it just hits different when the sheer weight of history is pressing down on it. You know, it's not just the biting, bone-chilling wind sweeping off Lake Michigan. It's the invisible, crushing gravity of expectation. Every single franchise in this league talks about winning, but in Chicago, they talk about legacy. They talk about ghost. Before a single snap is even played, you can literally feel the sensory overload. The deafening roar of 70,000 desperate souls, the metallic clatter of cleats on concrete echoing in the tunnel, the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of an entire city that demands nothing less than absolute salvation. Today, we're not just doing a standard breakdown. We are going to look far beyond the hash marks. We're looking past the playbooks. We are going to meticulously deconstruct the anatomy of expectation, dissecting the psychological architecture of the 2026 Chicago Bears. This is an explainer not just of a football team, but of the human mind operating under absolute, terrifying pressure.
I really want you to think about that for a second. Truly, what actually happens to the human mind when an entire city's hope rests squarely on its shoulders? Put yourself right there, down on the turf in that stadium. The play clock is bleeding down. 40 seconds, 30 seconds. The crowd noise isn't just loud anymore, it's a literal physical vibration in your chest cavity. The margin between immortal glory and agonizing career-defining failure is measured in absolute fractions of a second. In professional sports, especially at this elite level, the body is merely the vessel. The true crucible is the mind. When you are anointed as the chosen savior of a historic franchise, that psychological tension does one of two things. It either forges diamonds or it shatters glass.
To truly understand the massive psychological stakes of 2026, we have to first ground ourselves in the bitter, complex reality of 2025. It was a season of undeniable thrilling triumph, mixed with a hollow, gut-wrenching devastation. 11 wins, 6 losses. The pure euphoria of claiming the NFC North Champions title. The total vindication of knocking out their hated rivals, the Green Bay Packers. And then, the sudden, deafeningly silent void of the divisional round, eliminated by the Los Angeles Rams. I want you to think about the specific, agonizing silence of that post-game locker room. The heavy, exhausted sound of shoulder pads hitting the concrete floor. The stifling, painful realization that being really good is simply not enough. The mental toll of coming that agonizingly close, only to have the championship door slammed right in your face. It changes a team. It fundamentally alters their psychological DNA. The crushing weight of almost is a ghost that haunts every single rep of every single off-season workout.
Section 1. The quarterback's mind, the psychological friction of 2025. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's dive into this, because everything, and I mean everything, starts and ends with the fulcrum of the franchise, the quarterback. The quarterback's mind is the central engine room of the entire organization, and for the Chicago Bears, that mind belongs to Caleb Williams. The mental load placed on a young quarterback in the National Football League is almost incomprehensible to the rest of us sitting at home. He's not just throwing a leather football, he's out there processing complex geometric equations at absolute light speed, all while elite, 280-pound physical threats are actively trying to take his head off. Let's really look at the psychological friction he endured last season. Now, if you only looked at the surface-level stats, you'd probably think Caleb Williams took a massive, undeniable leap in 2025, right? I mean, he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. But I need to break your expectation right now. Notice the stark, glaring contrast in his efficiency. His pass completion percentage actually plummeted. In his rookie year, back in 2024, he set at a highly respectable 62.5%. But in 2025, that number dropped severely to 58.1%. This right here is the counterintuitive truth of NFL progression. How on earth does a quarterback get significantly more productive on paper, yet dramatically less efficient in reality? Well, it wasn't a mechanical failure. It certainly wasn't a dead arm. It was something far more subtle and far more dangerous.
It was cognitive overload, period. When we talk about cognitive overload in the NFL, we are talking about the intense psychological friction of processing a brand new offensive system, in this specific case, head coach Ben Johnson's incredibly complex, nuanced scheme. Every single pre-snap motion, every perfectly disguised coverage by the defense, every hot read, it all creates friction in the brain. It's like having too many tabs open on your computer. When you are overthinking, your feet naturally stop moving. It's a biological response. And when your feet stop moving, your throwing platform degrades entirely. That sub-60% completion rate wasn't about a lack of talent. It was a direct symptom of the brain stuttering for just 1/100th of a second before releasing the ball. It is the silent, exhausting, unseen battle between pure natural instinct and conscious, heavy processing.
And listen, that immense cognitive burden is only compounded when your environment fundamentally shifts around you. As Bleacher Report astutely noted heading into this critical offseason, not only did Williams post that sub-60 completion percentage, but, and I quote, now he's lost a key veteran receiver as well as his Pro Bowl center. Think about what that actually means for a second. When a quarterback loses his ultimate safety nets, the veteran receiver who knows exactly when to break off a route when a blitz is coming, the seasoned center who perfectly identifies the Mike linebacker to set the protections, the margin for error becomes razor thin. Picture the visceral, primal panic of a collapsing pocket. 300-pound super athletes are crashing inward from your blind side. The internal clock in your head is screaming. Without those trusted veteran anchors to rely on, the psychological pressure literally doubles. The fear of making a catastrophic mistake begins to violently shadow the pure, loose confidence of just making a play. Survival instincts override calculated execution. And that is when things fall apart.
Section 2. Engineering a Safety Net. GM Ryan Poles' Offseason Blueprint.
This brings us directly to the front office. General Manager Ryan Poles looked at that dropping completion percentage, he looked at the tape, and he understood exactly what it meant. He didn't just see a basic need for better athletes, he saw a mind in desperate need of protection. So he set out to meticulously, intentionally build a roster that wouldn't just physically dominate the opponent in the trenches, but would actually insulate and protect his young quarterback's fragile psychological state. Look really closely at the architectural choices Poles made here. These names, center Logan Jones, safety Dylan Thieneman, receiver Xavier Thomas, defensive tackle Jordan Vandenberg, these aren't just a random list of draft picks to fill out a depth chart. Underneath the surface, this is a calculated prescription for mental stability. Poles didn't just add players, he added raw processing power to his team. He added human shock absorbers specifically designed to distribute the intense, crushing cognitive weight of an NFL game across 11 men rather than leaving it resting entirely on the isolated shoulders of his quarterback.
Let's take Logan Jones, for example. 695. That is the jaw-dropping number of pounds rookie center Logan Jones can squat. It's an Iowa State record. It's almost mythical. But here's the thing. Poles didn't draft him just because he can move a literal mountain of iron. He drafted him because Jones blends that terrifying, overwhelming physical power with an elite, top-notch mental intelligence. The center is the brain of the offensive line. By placing a highly intelligent, physically immovable anchor directly in front of Caleb Williams, you immediately, instantly remove half of the pre-snap processing from the quarterback's plate. The center makes the calls. The center sets the line. You are literally buying back precious mental bandwidth for your star player. And let me tell you, in the high-stakes world of the NFL, mental bandwidth is the absolute currency of champions.
And this profound philosophy, it extends straight to the defense, too. Consider this incredibly telling quote from Oregon head coach Dan Lanning regarding their newly drafted safety, Dylan Thieneman. He's infatuated with it. He was a great leader for us, and really another coach on the field. Think about the weight of those words. When Ryan Poles drafts a natural, obsessive leader who acts as a literal coach on the field, he is importing an elite mental state directly into the locker room. When your defensive backfield is out there processing complex offensive formations with the calm, cold precision of a 20-year veteran coach, panic is simply eliminated. The pressure is distributed evenly. The collective heartbeat of the entire defensive unit slows down. And when the heartbeat slows down, that's when raw, terrifying athleticism is allowed to take over entirely, completely free from the heavy friction of anxiety.
The Bears systematically continued this exact trend with linebacker Keyshawn Elliott. Now, he wore the green dot for Arizona State. For those who might not know the deep inner workings, wearing the green dot means he was the designated, trusted communicator. He was the one receiving the complex calls directly from the sideline headset and orchestrating the entire defense in real time. He's widely projected as a future play caller on defense in the NFL. Adding incredibly high IQ players like Elliott ensures that this vital psychological stability isn't just isolated to the offensive side of the ball. It creates a massive psychological anchor across the entire team. Think about the pure, unadulterated chaos of an NFL Sunday. The frantic pre-snap shifts, the deafening, disorienting crowd noise, the rapid motioning receivers designed specifically to confuse your eyes. Elliott's presence builds a fortified ecosystem where supreme intelligence and rapid, clear communication completely neutralize that exact chaos.
Section 3. The Anatomy of Speed. Velocity as a stress reliever. Let's shift gears.
Okay, we've talked extensively about mental processing, but now we absolutely must discuss the physical realm. Specifically, we are looking at velocity as a literal stress reliever. You see, speed in the modern NFL isn't just about outrunning a tired defender to the end zone. Speed actually manipulates time itself. Extreme, overwhelming, terrifying speed forces defensive backs to respect the deep threat, and out of self-preservation, they create cushions, they back off. And those physical cushions relieve the split-second mental pressure on the quarterback. Ryan Poles built exactly this. We are looking at blistering, almost illegal 40-yard dash times here. Wide receiver Xavier Thomas clocking a 4.28, safety Dylan Thieneman at 4.35, cornerback Malik Muhammad at 4.42. The Bears have meticulously engineered an ecosystem built entirely on pure, unadulterated velocity. When your primary receiver runs a 4.28, he creates physical separation in the literal blink of an eye. For Caleb Williams standing back there in the pocket, that means vastly larger throwing windows, and a larger throwing window means you don't have to overthink the trajectory or the timing. The raw physical speed of the receiver entirely forgives the mental hesitation of the quarterback. It makes the complex reads glaringly, wonderfully obvious.
And this massive injection of velocity, it unlocks entirely new, terrifying dimensions for the coaching staff. It opens the heavy door to pure gadgetry and wizardry in both Ben Johnson's offensive playbook and Dennis Allen's defensive schemes. Because Xavier Thomas is so incredibly, impossibly fast, Johnson can confidently use him on tricky backfield screens, reversing the entire flow of the defense instantly before they even realize what's happening. Because Thieneman is an absolute rocket in the secondary, Allen can deploy him on heavily disguised, devastating blitzes from 20 yards away. Speed removes all limitations. It simply allows brilliant coaches to call plays that operate significantly faster than the opposing team's biological ability to think and react.
So, the crucial underlying point here is the sheer tactical advantage of this overwhelming velocity. It allows for brutally aggressive man-to-man defense, absolutely suffocating receivers right at the line of scrimmage because your corners know they have the makeup speed if they get beat. It permits wild, chaotic, disguised blitz packages that completely overload the offensive line's capacity to communicate in time. It even miraculously unlocks heavy 12 and 13 personnel packages, meaning multiple tight ends, because adding a massive tight end like Sam Rauch to the field still leaves blazing, game-breaking speed on the outside. It forces massive defensive secondary separation. What this all means in the grand psychological chess match is that this speed forces the opponent to process information faster than they are humanly capable of. The Bears have effectively weaponized speed to shift the psychological pressure, the devastating cognitive overload, entirely away from Caleb Williams and squarely onto the breaking minds of the opposing team.
Section 4. The final verdict. The impending collision of preparation and reality.
We have broken down the mind. We've examined the strategy. We've calculated the velocity. But now we arrive at the final verdict. The long off-season is over. The endless hypothetical scenarios are done. We are currently staring down the impending, violent collision of preparation and reality. This is the exact moment where all that pristine theory steps off the whiteboard and onto the unforgiving grass, where the meticulous, brilliant blueprints drawn up in the quiet halls of Hollis Hall are put to the ultimate, violent test under the glaring stadium lights. Because the reality of the National Football League is brutally, terrifyingly simple. The league has the tape. Defensive coordinators across the entire country have spent the last 6 months sitting alone in pitch-black film rooms, pausing, rewinding, dissecting every single microscopic frame of Caleb Williams operating in Ben Johnson's offense. They know his subconscious tells. They know his subtle preferences. They know exactly where his eyes dart when the pocket begins to collapse. They have isolated his specific moments of overthinking, and they have built entire, ruthless game plans designed exclusively to exploit them and break his confidence. But, as we've clearly seen today, the adjustments have been made on the other side too. Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears have not been sitting idle waiting to be exposed. They recognized the glaring vulnerabilities. They accurately identified the cognitive friction that was slowing their quarterback down. And they countered by becoming fundamentally deeper, significantly smarter, and terrifyingly faster than almost anyone else in the league. This isn't just football. This is high-stakes chess played with 300-pound human bodies moving at 20 miles per hour. And the Bears have completely rearranged the board to fiercely protect their king. They have intricately insulated his mind so that his arm can finally be totally free.
You have to understand, the margin in professional football is unspeakably cruel. It is a razor-thin wire suspended over an infinite, dark chasm. On one side of that wire is a dynasty, a team that masters its own internal psychology, successfully overcomes the friction of the game, and ascends to absolute legendary status. On the other side is a collapse, a roster that fractures under the colossal, suffocating weight of expectation, crippled by cognitive overload, overthinking, and tragic, unfulfilled potential. And at the bottom of that chasm lies forgotten legacy, painfully shortened careers, and the haunting, endless echo of what could have been. There is absolutely no middle ground in a city like Chicago.
There are no excuses left to make. The environment has been meticulously built, the weapons have been fully armed.
So, as we look to the horizon of this season, we are left with one final, deeply lingering question. When the season is truly on the line, when that stadium is deafening, when the psychological pressure violently peaks, and the physical margin for error completely vanishes into thin air, will this meticulously engineered psychological safety net actually hold? Time will tell. Before we go, if you enjoyed this explainer diving deep into the psychology and the mind of the game, make sure you subscribe to the channel NFL Nexus. Like this explainer, drop a comment on what you genuinely thought about Ryan Poles' off-season strategy, and please support the channel by becoming a channel member today. Until next time, keep your eyes on the tape.